Hello, friends, and welcome to Talking with Famous People. My name is Eric. I'm the host of the television program called Talking with Famous People. This broadcast live every day, sometimes not live, also on the internet. It's the only television program you'll never see on television, but only on the internet. Most internet programs don't call themselves television shows, but I do. Jack might type you. Good. Good for you. Good for him. Defining cognition. Thank you for bringing me back on topic. It's actually Jack that made me want to make this video because he left a comment that said something along the lines of, on my subroutine video, something along the lines of, I don't want to understand SI like this. I think it's better to understand it holistically, or something along those lines. I don't even mean to begin to attribute a quote of any sort to him, frankly, because I don't remember very clearly what he said. Just I read a little bit of it and I'm just like SMH. So since I do plan on debating him at some point when we find a time when we can both do it, if he shows up in this live stream, I'm going to just say, well, why don't we do it right now then, dude? But regardless, I want to sort of help to frame that conversation a little bit ahead of time because it's important to like have some sort of Jack Eagles World Socionic Society, right? Ryan, I'm not going to join your cult where no one gives a fuck about what people say about them because it's one of the many things, I guess. Other people's perspectives are one of the many things that I need to reference to understand the world. Anyway, I do care about what people say about me, and I don't want to join your cult. Okay, so regarding this matter of... Okay, right, yeah. I think a finite number of subroutines is the wrong way of thinking about it. Instead, I think the full scope of SI should be defined based on the core essence of what it is. So the thing is, the wrong way of thinking about it is thinking about it in terms of a right way of thinking about it and a wrong way of thinking about it. The right way of thinking about it is to know precisely what each way of thinking about it does and how it differs from the other ways of thinking about it, and why certain ways of thinking about it are more meaningfully buffering. Okay. Sorry about the buffering. I'm going to get my own internet out here like tomorrow. I'm going to call Giggle Fiber around here and see if I can get internet directly back here. It's kind of an unusual situation, but okay. Anyway, so the thing is, first of all, to say based on the core essence of what it is, the core essence of what it is, SI, already misses the boat. Because the core essence of a process of being isn't static. It's non-static. So one oughtn't to use a lot of be verbs when talking about it. My point is this. Instead of saying what's the right way of thinking about it or the wrong way of thinking about it, understand, first of all, what kind of arguments might be made about it, okay? That's a critical sort of thing to do. How can we think about it? First of all, note, it's a function. What does function mean in math? It's a process executed upon two objects or more, or one object, I guess you could. No, it has to be two objects, at least two objects. So in math, for example, if you have a 4 and you have a 5, you could put a plus between it. That would be a function. Put a minus between it. That would be a function. It's a process in math that tells you how the things relate to each other, basically. And the time frame in math is ordinality. That because 4 is to the left of 5, it comes first. Is that, that's pretty clear to everybody, I'm sure. So When we're talking about a cognitive function, then, we need to remember that it is presumably, the metaphor conveys that it's the will activating a function on two or more objects. Now, because people themselves count as one object, there's always multiple objects within a person already. So you can always, in fact, always are executing cognitive functions because you're never in an object vacuum environment. Socionics talks about information elements and about information metabolizers. So we can think about what it means to metabolize something. It means to take something that is external of one, bring it in, process it, convert it into presumably energy in the metabolism process, but convert it into something else. Since we know it's a metaphor, we're not talking about literal biological food metabolism. We're talking about information metabolism, right? Purportedly, according to socionics. So here's the thing. Punching you in the face is not information metabolism. It just isn't. Hating the living shit out of you would presumably be the result, the energy created from information being metabolized. But that denies the notion of a self, right? It's like, I don't know. It's hard to explain, I guess. But let me shift gears here about function and definition. So regardless, when we're talking about a cognitive function and we're talking about a process of attention, we remember that a couple of things specifically, that it is about, there are different kinds of attention, that not all attention is the same. When I'm punching you in the face, that's a kind of attention. And when I'm trying to remember your name, that's a kind of attention. So also, when I'm noticing my stomach's upset, that's a kind of attention. Okay, so Jean Grey, I don't mind you interrupting, but it's a good question in this instance because the way you framed it, it's informative for me as well. Well, remember, the idea of a attentional configuration suggests a couple of different things. That no matter what stage of development the brain is in, it still expresses through a set and finite number of channels, namely the function channels. But more broadly, the kind of function channels: knowledge, deliberation, action, interface. So it would be incorrect to do so, but you might think of action as acting upon a non-living thing, like a rock or a tree, and interface as acting upon a living thing that you know is going to react back, and you're going to have to be responsive in the moment. If I want to hit a hammer with a rock, I hit it with a rock, and then I can stop hitting it with a rock and don't have to worry about it hitting me back or anything, right? That's an action modality. High court jester. Now, on the other hand, if I hit a person in the face, well, then I have to expect them to react and respond. So we have different kinds of attention because the world requires different kinds of attention. There are circumstances in which you are correct to assume you can take action upon something and not have to interface with it. Anytime you're dealing with a non-living system, you can do that. There are other circumstances where it is incorrect to assume that you can take action upon something and not be then compelled to take action by that thing. So if I go up and slap a lion in the face, I'm going to have problems. If I go and slap a tree, I'm not. So going up to slap a tree requires me simply to make the decision to slap the tree. And that's as far as I need to go. Going up to slap the lion requires me to know that I'm going to go interface with a lion and be involved in a series of back and forths, right? So action itself, again, though, is not merely about the physical world. And this is where socionics sort of gets it wrong, I think. Remember, when we're defining these things, we need to make two reference points, really three, but at least two. One is to actual experience and examples we have. So if you're talking about a function being a certain thing or doing a certain thing or mia, you should be able to provide an example of somebody actually using the function in a way that we can resonate with, or else you're not talking about a cognitive function anymore. You're talking about something else. So when I say, for example, that in the fourth slot, SI is an absolute value. And well, what does it mean to use a function as an absolute value? Well, it means something like this. I know SI is an absolute value because when I get in the bath and I'm feeling the warmth of the water and the comfort of it and stuff, it's its own end. In other words, it doesn't have to be framed as useful to something else. It's an end in itself. In contrast, TI is not an end in itself for me. It's close to it in the sense that it's my tool function. It might seem like it a lot of times, but being logically consistent in and of itself doesn't ever mean anything to me. It might be the case that I find somebody else being logically inconsistent and then avoiding being called out on it or something annoying, but that doesn't mean that logical consistency is in and of itself an absolute value for me. I don't feel any satisfaction from being logically right. I just sort of assume I'm going to be. And if I'm not, I feel a vague sense of annoyance. But it's not an absolute value also in the sense that I'm perfectly comfortable choosing things that aren't logically consistent or choosing affirmations that aren't logically consistent when it suits my purposes. So that's just an instrumental value. I can give examples of what those things are. So in other words, when I'm using TI, the way I use it, because of where it is in the stack as a process, means that I choose when to apply it and when I don't apply it. I choose whether or not to attach to it almost. Extroverted intuition is different. If something is boring to me, it is almost physically painful for me to endure it. It's an absolute value. I need more novelty than that. I need more stimulation than that. If someone won't engage with me in my talking as a way of dealing with shit, in other words, they want to use words like not to engage the person directly, but rather you, meh, and me, meh. Well, it's because for me, the reason I'd rather do the engaging directly is because my other absolute value is FE, an interface function. So my two absolute values are talking and interfacing. For me to feel as though my talking is actually being realized, it needs to be realized on an FE level. They're both absolute values. Being liked by people, being perceived as smart and competent and stuff like that is in and of itself a goal. But is not everyone hating doing things they are not interested in? I mean, the point is, it's not, okay. Are you talking about for any? Well, I'm saying a lot of people don't necessarily find, I guess the point is, let's say there's something that is boring, but not in any other way distasteful. It's just very slow and boring. And your situation is otherwise comfortable. you're sitting around, you have a beverage, and you're in a comfortable chair. A lot of people might not be particularly bothered by that. That's a chance to rest, look at my phone or whatever. I would be very bothered by that. I want to know, what the fuck am I doing here? What is this? Yeah. So I would say, no, it's not necessarily the case that people hate boring stuff. Nobody is obviously excited by boring stuff because it's boring, but not everybody finds it actively painful. So it's the odd number ones are absolute and the even number ones are instrumental. So 4, 6 are instrumental, and 8 are instrumental, and 2. And 1 and 3 and 5 and 7 are absolute. And the thing is, check yourself. Think about it for yourself. For me, it's cut and dry. It's like, well, NI is definitely an absolute value. FI is an absolute value too. FI is important to me. It's the absolute value that I least am able to uphold. And efficacy is the instrumental value I'm least able to uphold. Hello, NH. So let's see what this says. Do we not have to fit in the given environment? Some may have to think a lot to just avoid punishment. Maybe you become a thinker more than a feeler under the circumstance. Well, no, you never become different, right? There's no such thing as a thinker or a feeler. That's a mistake to say that. Now, I'll say it too, but I'm not saying it's a mistake for you to say it. I'm saying it's a mistake we all make when we're talking about it. Because what really is the case is somebody is using either thinking or feeling or whatever their other functions in their stack, but they're using them in a way that is determined by their configuration. So it's like Rachel will use TI to adjudicate things, really more than she'll use FE in ways that matter. In other words, the conclusions she draws with FE are quick and correct and final and whatever, but aren't of great significance. Whereas the conclusions she draws with TI are much more significant to her. The conclusions I draw with TI are quick and easy and determinate, but the conclusions I draw with FE are more important to me ultimately. I got a comment somebody saying, well, you're being pressured into moving here. And I am, of course, being pressured into moving in regards to all the hubbub and stuff. Well, because, I'm here to have a good time with people. If I'm not entertaining them with boring ass conflict, then obviously I'm failing myself in every sense of the word. So that's it. Okay. Hi, World Socionics. Yeah, this is in response to your comment. So, okay. Here's what I would say. What I want to do basically, Jack, is prepare you for when we talk about this stuff so that you have already got some chance at seeing my hand ahead of time a little bit, okay? So the thing is, the real point I would make here is when you say the core of what it is. Number one, obviously, we have to be careful how we're using language, because if you're going to say the core of what it is, it presumes there is a core, that it's not something that's like an onion or something that's like a meow or something that's like a meow. But okay, let's assume there is a core to it. But of course, even if there is a core to it, the only way we're going to determine what the core is to describe it or define it as distinct from what it is not. And the problem is that we have a lot of different ways of measuring something depending on what angle we're looking at it is. So you got to be aware that, remember, the word function is key. What does a function do in math? It is executing a process on 2 or more objects in the system. And the key thing about a cognitive function is you are one object yourself, and you have ways of executing processes upon objects in the system, some of which are willful and some of which are intentional but not willful. So some of which are unintentional. The other thing is, you got to remember when you're talking about it, and I'm talking about it, we have two frames of our own. We've got an illocutionary frame and an elocutionary frame. The illocutionary frame is the aspects that are motivating our conversation that have nothing to do with what we're actually saying. And then the locutionary frame are the actual meanings of the words we're saying out loud. Managing those two frames, amongst other things, requires that there be some understanding of fields, agents, objects, vectors, right? And so okay. So, again, Countess, I want you guys to, let's do it right now. Right now, Countess, you and Peter Dentici, get in your car. Do you have a car?
Yeah, screw that. It's been too long. What the hell?
Okay. Call me or something, all right? No service with your phone. Peter Dentici, I'm about to drive up to Santa Cruz and piss on your porch. What do you think about that? I'm going to go up there, I'm going to find your porch, I'm going to piss on it. How are you guys doing? Other YouTube videos are working. Can other people still see Eric? I can see Eric. Is anybody else having problems? Oh. All right, cool. You are in a mountain. Yeah, will you guys come visit us or something? Do you have a car? All right. So, Peter Dentici and Countess, I want to know if you are willing to get in the car right now and drive 3 hours or maybe even 2.5. We get in the car and drive 2.5. We could meet you halfway between here and Santa Cruz, probably like Harris Ranch or something. Maybe we'd go a little further. Maybe like San Luis Obispo. Well, Jack, you'd have to rewatch it, goddammit. I'm not going to repeat it a third time now. First, I had to repeat it because you were late. You know I was about to randomly start shit. Come on. And then I had to repeat it after you, and then you were having technical difficulties. Well, your English people that get their asses out of their faces or something. I don't know. We can understand how a process. I will sort of pick up where I left off. For there to be a process, there needs to be an agent. Now, to be a process, there needs to be an agent who initiates action. For there to be a function, there needs to be an agent who initiates force along a vector in some fashion, such that things are transformed at the other end of the process. There has to at least be an ordinality of the process, a beginning and a directionality, but it doesn't necessarily have to be free flowing or fluid. It could be conditional, like we're doing right now, or which establishes objects on a flow, so to speak. So I can say, no, you go back and rewatch it. Well, that means the objects are permanent on the flow, and we can access them, right? I'm creating objects on a flow right now. So in no way could I be said to largely be metabolizing information elements because the vast majority of the process is not a metabolizing process. It's a excretion process, frankly. Even if information has been metabolized and making objects. So we have to actually say, okay, let's stop with the socionics, Eric system, or whatever, or anybody's thing. Let's stop right there for a second. What are the different ways that people actually do pay attention? And it turns out that there are really 8. There's action, like I'm doing right now, words, which isn't really what we usually call action, but that's a form of action too. Then there's action, like actually doing shit, like digging a hole. And then there's knowing, universally, NI. There's knowing, experientially, SI. Does that get to the core of what SI is? Well, it's the best single word description or 2-word description or whatever. But remember, this isn't the sort of thing that can be both most accurately described and most meaningfully described with the same word set. Those vectors run afoul of each other. They are inversely proportional. The more precise you get, the less concise you get. It means to get a genuine understanding of a thing, we have to actually lay out a variety of different manners of assessing the thing. We're using a negative space. Let's wash this thing in all different light spectrums and see, okay, when you shine red light at it, it just looks like there's nothing there. But when you shine a certain kind of green light at it, you can see the shape of the otherwise invisible creature right there, you know? So we need to try shining all the different kind of things at it. We need to first understand what kind of different things can you shine at it. Then we need to shine all the different kind of things at it, and we can understand it that it looks like this when we look at it with this kind of light. It looks like this when we look at it this kind of light. We look at it like this, you know? When we shoot radio waves at it and bounce them back at us, it looks like this. This is the visual representation of the audio spectrum there. So that's how we've got to approach a cognitive function. I gotta smoke a cigarette. That's how I gotta approach my lungs' cognitive functions by smoking. Okay. So one thing that I've indicated a lot in talking about functions to people is this notion of something that can be simulatable. What would it take for something to be simulatable? Well, we need to understand, we'd have to have a finite understanding of a system's dynamics. So what does it mean to have a finite understanding of a system's dynamics? It means we need to see it as comprising objects and force vectors and fields. And some of the objects will have to be agents. So you'd have to, in order to break down really what we're trying to break down in a way that you could test. Where the fuck are my cigarettes? Look at there in my jacket.
No, they're right behind.
Oh, they're behind over here. Oh, it's empty. Everybody panic. Everybody panic. Everybody panic right now. But there's more cigarettes somewhere, though. I know there are. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, hold on a second. Hold on a second, everybody. So the thing is, what that really means is that information moves in a finite number of directions. It goes outward, comes inward, it comes upward from the source of the object. Okay, well, I've heard you, now I hope you've heard what I just said a second ago as well. So anyway, let me smoke this cigarette. If you are ready to have the conversation now, I can end the stream and you and I can talking whereby we just have a conversation and record it. put half of it up on your channel, half of it on mine, or whatever. God damn it. Hey, Jack, how come you can always have time to come fucking litter my chat with your speculative nonsense, but not ever have time to actually come and have a conversation with me, huh? Friday? What day is it today? Monday? Friday I work. I work with those people on Fridays. Friday's forever from now. Why are you always trying to make plans like 5 days from now? Why not make plans within the next 12 hours sometime, 24 at max. Then I could be like, all right, fine, I can commit to that. Friday, come on, dude. That's a week from now, practically. I don't even want to whip Jack's ass. This is the thing. What I would say, Jack, is the wisest approach probably would be for both of us. I mean, see, I don't even necessarily want to do this, but what you should do, people who start sentences, what you should do, when talking to me, I tend to roll my eyes at them. So I'm sorry for that. But is ask a bunch of questions. Treat it like a cross-examination. Try to catch me. I think that's your best angle. I think we'd both be well served to ask a bunch of questions before we start making arguments. Do cross-examinations. In cross-examinations, one person asks, one person answers. We can take turns. Okay, Jack, I just told you, let's try not to make plans like fucking days and days from now. And you went from Friday to Saturday. That's further in the future than Friday. Hello, Hambone. See my pooing? Damn it. Now you're just teasing me. Now you're just taunting me. Now you're just tickling my fancy with your feather finger. Now you're just jiggling my undercarriage. Okay? I have an undercarriage that easily gets motion sick. I don't appreciate you jiggling it. Stop jiggling my undercarriage. It's easily jostled. Stop jostling my undermarriage. It's easily hassled. Stop jiggling my undercarriage. You're gonna make it puke. Then you'll have man seed all over you. That was Undercarriage Jiggle by Eric and the Jigglettes. Okay. How can we have a meaningful idea of personality type with just cognition, e.g. acquisition and understanding of information? Well, no, what you need, you're right that's a great question. But what you got what we need wrong. What's missing is a prime directive to make the whole thing come together. If you have a prime directive, an engine that drives everything, then it makes sense. So what the prime directive is the bringing together of, or in smallening the distance between realities and expectations. Hankins here. If your goal is to get laid before the year is up, then I want to help facilitate that goal and give you some pointers on how to pick up chicks. All right, good night. This is number one tip. When you see a chick you want to pick up on, as you're walking up to her, you walk like this. Okay? Shakes really like that. And when you get there, you go like this. And when you get there, you go like this. She turns around. Now, unfortunately, the hard part comes next. She's likely to roll her eyes at you. But here's where you get her, because you're prepared for that. Wait for her to turn back around. Then you tap her other shoulder. And when she turns around, you go like this. Don't be like that, girl. And now you got her. All of a sudden, her eyes shift. You see this sort of glazed look of obedience fall upon them. And you close the deal with this, with blow a little kiss like this. Go, you know you're my world. Like that. At that point, her clothes will literally melt from her body. And you catch her, lead her by the hand back to wherever it is you want to take her. She's yours. Yeah, you want to throw a hee-hee in occasion. If she's a tough nut to crack, you gotta throw one of those. Die hat ni groby kisty. Die hat ni groby kisty. Right. You can also try this one. There's one other. I haven't offered you this one before. This is kind of one to keep my own secret playbook, but I'm good forever. So I'm gonna just let out there. So what you want to do is interesting. You know what else would be I think a good possible pickup line would be, girl, seeing you here makes me feel like Michael Jackson moonwalking into an elementary school. Do you think she'd like that? Sauce is here, my favorite ENFP, my FI policeman. My FI overlord is here to lord over his FI over me. Pope Oscillate. Pope Oscillate. What is it meant by the description of TI as processes? Play as process oriented to TI. In other words, if I said that, it's not specific to TI at all. It was wrong. I don't know. Have it in the second slot, right? It makes you a process oriented person rather than outcome oriented person. But that's not implicit to TI. So I don't know why I said that. It's probably a wrong page. I no longer believe that if I did at any point. Let's see. Hey, Taylor's here too. Hi, Flow State. Nice to hear from you on the telephone. Very isolated in my cutie pie. She's sleeping. Or no, she's not. She's playing on her phone. I'm not glitching. You just bitching. Why don't you go and dig yourself a ditch then? Ward, you're talking crazy talk again. Makes no sense. Warzidjan Zidane, come on now. Hello there. You're super lonely. Don't worry, I'll buy you a pony. You can ride it down to the liquor store and make friends with some stupid whore. Go there, buy a bottle of Jack. Bring it home, have a crack attack. Drink it all down, hit the sack. Feel better tomorrow. There you go. It's pretty bad advice, really. I wouldn't recommend it, but Rob and Eric doesn't really Doesn't really think about that sort of stuff very much. Do Germans eat oatmeal? Okay, well, that's what needs to change. I want to go get a job with the Quaker Oat Company. I'm going to walk into their corporate offices and say to them, do you know Germans don't eat oatmeal? We need to change that. Yes, I do. I like to rap about being good, not doing drugs like you should. Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. You want to hear me rap about how doing drugs is crap, but don't do drugs. But don't do drugs. God damn it. I knocked over my drink. Because I was playing the drums. There goes the coffee. Good thing there's no dairy in it. I wrote the drugs. I wrote the lyrics. I didn't write the drugs. I wrote the lyrics of the song. Actually, the song with Bruce Willis, he came up with the drums. Which I must say, pretty obvious to me that he's a winner who doesn't do drugs. Otherwise, there's no way he would be that good at the drums. Because everybody knows only losers do drugs. Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. Come on. Yeah, I was listening to my. Went through my listening to my new songs. So my songs always get published in these neat sabbling on the XTC pillin'. I don't need an XTC pillin'. I was trying to go. So lots of them. Most recent one was Throwing Shade. Every day I'm buffering. All right, tomorrow. That's it. Look, tomorrow I'm gonna go get my own fucking. This is ridiculous. I'm tired of dealing with my dad's shitty ass internet. Have you tried to make it a long story? Yeah, I have songs that are long stories. We're just in bed, or sort of sleeping, sort of on our phone. Yeah, I have some long songs. Long story songs. I do. I've got, for example, I've got the story of the Garden of Eden. It's like 6 minutes long. I've got the story of how I saved Cosmo magazine. It's about 4 minutes long. I've got, Arizona, the Arizona song, which is about somebody who, that's a good one, actually. I haven't listened to that in a long time. It's about somebody who gets stranded in the desert. Let's see. Arizona Dry Place, it's called. And I will put the link to it right now. There's a second half to this song. I split this song into 2 parts. I have to find the second half of it. Okay. Rachel, tarot, and astrology angle here. Do you see how the numbers of tarot, minor, arcana, and the houses on our natal chart seem to correspond? I'm not sure what Winston's wrong about that, but I will tell you this, that I found my birth certificate. My dad did. And it has on here my exact time of birth, which is 1:29 a.m. And the date, April 2771. My parents were both 33 years old when they had me. We're both Caucasians. It says, apparently it's a race. Yeah. 1:29 a.m. Anyway, so Rachel did some astrology report stuff on it, and apparently she and I have incredible compatibility according to the astrology charts. And the crazy thing is, also on the biorhythm thing, what's weird, my natural skepticism about these sort of things says, I'm sure they would give any two birthdays something positive. They're just trying to sell this person on something positive, blah, blah, blah. Not true. I couldn't put in random dates that would even give me anything. It's weird that we like win the lottery on the random nonsense of all. Like, you know, it's at least what I'm saying is, even if it's random nonsense, it's fair random nonsense, and we are objectively, indisputably, score way better than any two random dates you can put in there, or you know, that's weird to me. It's also the case that, in fact, the relationship is, I think, substantially better for both of us than anything we've ever had before. And I think it's living up to it's allowing both of us to live up to our potential as relationship partners. It lets us both be really good partners, be successful in a relationship, and because it's just so easy. It's like, and I don't know why it is. Who knows why? But I mean, I have theories about why it is, but they're all basically, all my explanations as to why it is we get along so well and stuff. They mostly have to do about what we don't do, what we're not doing wrong, what neither of us does wrong. You know, we both prioritize the right kind of things. It's like we both get a little annoyed when it's a mess around here, but neither of us bitch about it. Like Rachel did something kind of silly tonight, although it was kind of proved me doing something silly too. I put this extra little bar up to be like, so your chair won't fall off of the edge of the. It used to be the chair would fit under the railing on the patio. So if you push the chair, it could go through the hole between the railing and the patio. You know, it's like, that's the sort of thing that it never even crossed my mind to get mad or anything, because it's obviously an accident and shit happens. There's no reason to get upset. You know, you get upset at intentional wrongdoing, not at accidents. So, you know, it's like, I think we're getting used to the fact that we both don't attack each other in spots where we're used to getting attacked. And that's it takes a little while to really relax when you realize, so I can really relax. I don't have to worry. You're not going to do any of that shit to me that other people have done. And increasingly, I think we're both feeling that's the case. I find our fights, which, you know, we had the other day, I find them incredibly informative, revelatory, and productive. For example, it struck me today that what Rachel really needed was somebody who was absolutely unwaveringly certain that he wanted to be with her, and also absolutely unwilling to try to make her stay if she didn't want it, if she wasn't all in herself. Because in the past, she probably always had one of two things. Either the person was ambiguous about her, wasn't really clear as to what he wanted because he wanted to keep his options open and wanted other people or whatever, or they were controlling because they wanted her, but they wanted to make sure she didn't ever stray or anything. And so they probably tried to use leverage and force and stuff like that to make her, you know, to police her in ways that weren't healthy. Whereas with me, what she kept encountering was, I'm absolutely certain I want to be with you and you be here and stuff. And if, you know, if you don't feel the same way, I'll buy you a plane ticket. They send you back to New York. Have a nice time, you know. And the thing is, it was very frustrating for her because I think she felt like that means I didn't really care about her. Whereas to me, it seemed like her questioning whether or not she was all in meant she didn't really care about me. In other words, to me, caring was displayed through the decision and the consistency in executing that decision. Whereas to her, commitment was displayed in, I guess, displays of attachment or being attached, perhaps. And I think at first she felt as though, well, Eric's not being attached enough, therefore he's not serious about me. But then right next to that was, but he's super serious about me. He's never wavered on it. And he always keeps saying he's that. And he keeps just telling me blah, 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 blah. At the same time, I was hearing her wavering and thinking, okay, well, this is like what I've encountered before, where it's going to be used as leverage against me. The fact that I don't want to be the person who's trying to keep the relationship together and rowing the boat one direction and having to get my partner back into the boat, or my partner turns around and starts rowing the other direction. And I'm like, okay, I thought we were going this way. I don't want to deal with that ever again. So I just said, look, it's all in or all out. And, you got to make a decision. You got to make a choice. What I think I've realized, and she's realized as well, is that fight was testing. It was, she was testing me to see if I was really actually committed, even when she wasn't so pleasant, even when she wasn't so nice, even when she was being kind of arbitrary and not fair and stuff, right? And that, I passed the test on both accounts. I passed the test on both accounts not because I was trying to pass the test. I passed the test on both accounts because it was a test on my end as well. It was like, well, we'll find out then if you're all in. This is not a fun moment in the relationship. Are you going to bolt or not? And we both passed each other's tests, and I think at the end of it, we realized this is a communication thing, such that we're expecting things to be conveyed ways that the other person doesn't convey them in. And so in that regard, we're misinterpreting each other sometimes. But it's fine. I wouldn't want us to be so much like that we always spoke on the same wavelength, because that's not that much. That's not interesting. It's just not much there to get out of the relationship then. Kankan Krishna Sarma Pagoo's here. Hi, Kankan Krishna Sarma Pagoo. Let's see what we got here.
I have a question for.
Pixie wants to know what types has Rachel dated. Most recently, ISTP and INTJ. Also, actually, ISFJ, ESFJ.
That's it.
That's the last 4, I think.
That's pretty much it.
Of people you've dated?
Dating, yeah. I mean, like serious dating. I dated a lot of INTJs, mostly. Maybe one ENFP. Mostly, so INTJ, ISTP was the first, and ESFJ. I didn't really deviate that much.
I don't think she's ever dated an EHP before. She has an EHP friend.
Yeah, no.
The thing is, I've never dated anybody like Rachel before. It's one of the things that makes her so appealing to me, I guess, is that she's not like this isn't like any version I've had before. She's not like anybody I've ever dated before. She's both familiar and foreign at the same time. Oh, I see. Those are fairly good positions. I would say they're excellent positions. What are you talking about? Astrology? More like astrology. Am I right? It's coincidentally accurate. Okay, well, whatever. It's astrology. It's like I don't have, I don't believe in it. I don't know what I think about it. Frankly, it's interesting to me, sort of. As I'm not going to spend a lot of time focusing on it because it's not an inherent empirical link that makes sense to me. Okay. Let's see. Goodbye. Hello there. K2 in ninth is fairly good. K2 in eighth, at least you won't be affected by it. Also, you'd have the fortitude to stand 8 house challenges. Pope Oslet, Rachel's an NFJ. Just a general au revoir. INTJ, Rachel dated an INTJ. What is that like, please? What was it like dating an INTJ, Rachel?
It was like we should have been friends. When it came to topics where we both had an intuition on something, I would be like, yeah, I feel this person is messing with you, or the INTJ would be like, I just don't trust that I need more evidence. And then it was just always better as a friendship than it was for love, because we were always debating on what we thought and what we feel was right, and it got exhausting.
Tom Jefferson asks, how did the ISTP relationship go?
It was good. I can't say that it was terrible, but when he needed to be heard, and he liked to talk and have me listen, but I wouldn't say that that was reciprocated. So it made for a lot of one-sidedness in the relationship. So I felt as an INFJ that I wasn't being heard enough as I wanted. So again, I guess.
Now, it's interesting that he would want to be. It's not surprising he'd want to be heard, but did you have a lot of times of silence, or was there a lot of ongoing conversation? Was he prattling on?
Actually, there was a lot of silence between us. A lot. We would go for hours actually without actually talking.
Because ISTPs are not particularly talkative. So if you were to start the conversation with stuff, how would that proceed forward? If you were to say like, "Hey, bring up something that interested you," how would that be received?
Good question. It wasn't received. He would listen, right? But like, it would go very quickly. That's it. Where if you were to talk to me about a subject, we'd be on it for like a good hour and a half. He could go on about whatever his subject was, but when I would go to him, it wasn't really the same. He was quiet.
Flow state, I agree with what you're saying there, but about the finding the need for more evidence. But the thing is, it's also a TE thing, so it's hard to say. Also, I've been seeing Rachel being more vocal about her thoughts in the election, which I think is great, as her viewpoint is interesting, possibly a sign of growing confidence. I think it's a sign of growing comfort between the two of us, probably. Mm-hmm. You got to understand and respect the fact that to come into an environment like this as thoroughly disempowered environmentally as one can be, not in actuality, but it's my environment, my everything, and she's trying to fit into it. The fact that what she's discovered is, and I think we both spent a lot of time trying to maintain defenses to disprove this, because it just seems so crazy, but is that she fits in perfectly, and that it's what she wants, actually, that it's not imposing anything on her. That she's not totally willing and interested in doing. It's like sometimes I ask her to do a couple of little things or whatever, but by and large, we don't have a lot of. We have a pretty cushy life here, So, it's great. It's great as we begin to feel genuinely safe with each other and can relax and realize that all the stories we've been telling, positive stories we've been telling, were probably unnecessary because they were true. Which is an interesting thing. You really have to control the narrative when the reality's not there, you know. But if the reality's there, then I don't know. I just feel like, generally speaking, too many variables in astrology impossible to prove. Also, yeah, sure, of course, right?
Right, because there would be variants.
Okay, the thing is, here's the main difference is I have, for example, cognitive functions understood in such a way that it's designed to reveal contradictions if I have something incorrect. In other words, the correct interpretation is the one that doesn't produce any contradictions. But it's designed such that there's a very finite number of interpretations, and you can check against multiple pieces of empirical evidence. And you're trying to define how somebody is cognating, not how they are as a person. So in other words, just describing how you are behaving or going through the world as a being based on attentional channels, habituated natures of attentional channels, is something that can be linked to a lot of different concretization metrics like empirics and or the consensus about what things mean and or references to how to model systems and lots of other kind of things, values, etc. All the things we talk about with them. So there's a lot of reasons why you can begin to pin that down as something more definitive, at least. But with astrology, there are competing aspects going on concurrently, and exclusivity doesn't apply. So I might have one aspect of my astrology chart that says this is going to be a struggling area for you two, and another part of my chart that says something very, very similar to that is going to be a strength area for you. And there may be some contextual differences, but astrology doesn't have exclusivity or proportionality or inverse proportionality in its mechanics, the way at least my understanding of cognitive functions does.
And I think that's fair, because if you don't so they do say in the fine print that not even in the fine print, they say in the introduction that during your report you're going to see contradicting elements. What this means is that they can either play it at the same time, they can play out one or the other, like that sort of thing. So they're like, when you read the stuff, take it all in, but realize that different parts of you are going to be activated at different times. So it's supposed to give you an overarching idea more than cancel each other out. They do sometimes, but sometimes they also do play out. So it's I get why people get frustrated reading that.
Right. Well, see, whereas the reason why it's possible to type somebody is because you can nail down a couple of things, then you can deduce other things. So the system is designed such that if you are using as a tool function a disinterested calculus, that is, say, TI, parsing out for logical consistency, in other words, checking words for legitimacy, basically, and not considering your own interests in the matter, but considering it on a logic universal legitimacy level, then if you are using that as a tool function, then you are almost never using an interested calculus in your decision making.
Yeah.
The things are exclusive of each other. And that means to disprove this idea, the model itself, all you have to do is somebody who habitually uses both an interested and a disinterested calculus concurrently. But such a person would be entirely, but the thing is, you have to be able to provide things that allow people to disprove your model if you want your model to be something more than arbitrary. And what allows people to disprove my model is they need to show me somebody who has, for example, TI polar on the skills test and also SI polar on the skills test, or that has FI tool but passes TI polar. Now, exactly how to establish those things sufficiently that it would disprove it, it may take some doing, but it's certainly possible to build a very strong case against it if you can show me some individuals who do this, who have these skill sets that seem contradictory to the model. And you might say, well, but if you're finding such a person, you're just going to say, no, they're the thing that is consistent with the model, not the thing you say. But the point is, there are certain contradictions that are absolutely inconsistent with the model, and there's no way to squirrel out of it. If somebody is an ENFP who does well on TI and the skills test, if you could somehow nail down that they're definitely an ENFP, but they do well on the skills test, that would be definitive. There's something wrong with my whole idea. If you can show me an ENTJ who does well on an SI test, who does remember a bunch of details. Like, the reason I know that Rachel's not an ENFJ, the main reason is I kept encountering too good of examples of SI. Too many times that she referenced personal examples and stuff. Not as much as somebody who has in the front stack at all. Okay, if you have somebody who fails completely on TI and SI, that would invalidate the model. Because it's supposed to be that it's not possible to have polar in two spots. One of the problems with trying to finally validate my model, though, is I can only come up with skills tests for 3 of them. At least skills tests that I can functionally apply. TE skills tests, though, I have some ideas. Somebody gave me some good ideas for them, and I want to try them out. And I haven't really tried them yet. Like make a float or something. I don't know. How to teach a class. Explain it as an order of operations. I think the ability to switch things from order of operations to holistic indications and back again is a indication of TETI in both useful spots. Ordinals. I can express my TEI condition, so I'm better at using the communicative aspects of TE than I am actually applying TE to anything. Well, what I'm pointing out is we can't really simply define cognition in 1 or 2 words with any kind of meaningful. I mean, look, the point is you can't meaningful. I mean, look, the point is words into what? Well, okay. Is that a kind of cognition? Am I thinking right now? What am I doing? I'm talking. Not really. No, I was thinking. It wasn't in sentences. And also, thinking is different than observing. Just staying there, looking, watching somebody, gathering information about them. That's different. Those are different processes of being. You might say drinking, eating's not really different from sleeping. Eating's not really different from having sex. All those things seem to be, or going to the bathroom, all those things seem to be part of the same category of thing. So in that regard, you can talk about there being a class of things that's just self-care, a class of things that's impacting out externals, like punching someone in the face or digging a hole or unlocking the door or something like that. Anyway, it's one of those things where it's impossible to say that people only pay attention in one way and be taken seriously. If you want to define cognition, then it's going to be the composite expression of being of multiple attentional channels expressing its functions. You know, it's going to be something like that. But it's not really meaningful to say, let's define cognition. It's meaningful to say, let's define a cognitive function. Because that's making a distinction now. You're not just saying personality is personality, tautology, tautology, tautology. Okay, so I am going to, is the third slot TI perspective a view that everything has a reason for being the way that it is? No, a third slot TI perspective is one that says, I'm very good at managing your perceptions and stuff. But what really matters to me is that you be right. Or I be right. You know, it's like rightness matters more than grace. Is third slot TI. For me, grace matters more than rightness. Okay. What I'm going to do now is, if the mount of Mercury leans to the outer side of the palm, the subject will excel in business. The person that has a well-established mount is known as a Mercurian. This person will normally have an olive complexion, curly black hair, and fantastic energy. The person knows how to tell lies. Olive complexion, curly black hair, and a fantastic energy. I don't think I'm very olive. My hair is not very black. It was blonde when I was a kid. It is a little curly. I'd call it wavy, maybe. I don't think I'm one such person. Who wants to debate host Eric? Flow State? Flow State doesn't want to debate host Eric.
I'm gonna look that up. She. I don't think you fit that profile, but you may be mercurial.
I don't think they were talking about me.
No.
But why do people assume SE DOMs don't like or engage abstract deliberation, especially ESTPs? They are wrong to assume that. ESTPs are the most intuitive of the sensors. They're the most, they have a strong instrumental relationship with ideation, 8 slot any, and they've got a metaphysical deliberation function, TI tool function, which means that's what they're doing. So abstract ideation back and forth is right in their freaking wheelhouse, you know? It's just, people are right to assume that about sensors in general sometimes, but they're, ESTPs are most naturally intuitive. And also, it's notable that even when people are making correct conclusions about sensors, like ESTJs, for example, we might totally misinterpret a given piece or an indication. My dad has a doctorate in philosophy. Hearing that piece of information, I might conclude he's an NTP, but absolutely not in a million, billion, trillion years. My dad is a textbook, #1, top poster boy in the world, ESTJ. So, just goes to show you about correlates. Okay, also goes to show you why my dad talks about philosophy to me so much when I was a kid. This is why it trips me out so much that I learned this the other day. I never knew this. For 48 fucking years, I didn't know. I have done one. I did at least one. I can do another one. We'll do another one. Thank you, Vision. But yeah, he has a doctorate in philosophy and explains where he talks about philosophy with me a lot as a kid. And it also explains what I've described before as how it was kind of like I'd start asking questions and I'd reach a point where he'd say, well, that's where the chapter ended or whatever. It's sort of like, well, that's all it said about it in the book. And I go, can TI trick itself into stop using functions? Can TI trick itself into stop using functions? I'm not sure what you mean there. TI trick itself into not using itself? I mean, I will know what the TI truth is, like the TI conclusion is, but I don't have to prioritize that. That's easy for me to be like, I know it's illogical, but whatever. Doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm not applying TI in this instance. That's easy for me to do. But it doesn't mean I won't know. I won't actually have the determination as to whether it's logical or not. That is going to be there no matter what. Oh, TI to not use SE. I used to set myself as an ENTP until I realized that ESTP, it's gone. I know an ISP who used TI to not use SE. I mean, I don't think that could be an ISTP then. Probably an INTP if they didn't use SE. And they probably use TINE. I mean, everybody sort of filters all the functions by the DOM. Why do you think he's an ISTP if he's successfully not using SE? Oh. To anyone familiar with reality transurfing, functions can also act as pendulums. Reality transurfing, huh?
I know that term.
I've never heard it before.
That's an Aaron Doherty thing.
Who's Aaron Doherty?
He's a guru.
Guru. Reality transurfing manifestation process. Huh. Well, that being ambiguity. I mean, to a certain extent, every function is filtered through the first. Like, look, your first function is sort of the shepherd of your identity. So it's going to pick the field where your other functions are playing. And it's going to pick it accordingly to its ability to interact effectively on that field with the other functions. When control is divested from it, in other words, the external world puts demands on you, then you start feeling very uncomfortable. The problem is some functions are much easier for the external world to run afoul of than others. Extroverted intuition is a function that's easy for the external world to run afoul of. Most of the time, the world is not asking of me to talk or give ideas. I have to find a very specialized ecosystem in order for that to be the case, namely YouTube. Yeah, if your mom is wrong a lot but will not ever acknowledge it, it will strain your relationship a lot. Because ultimately, you're looking for a TIFE kind of fairness thing. Either fairness on terms of technicality fairness or fairness in terms of effort fairness. Like, what she's making a real effort to take on half of the burden here, the burden being sort of the burden of responsibility or wrongness. Burden of responsibility or wrongness. The TI is using the function to build a truth table, or not to. I would say the genetic design of the neurons present as a favor of presenting a function. The first function is not much a discrete module like the other function, sort of actually glues the other modules together. That's how I see it. That's one way to say poop oscillate. You can also say it's the water in which the other functions swim, kind of. The thing is, it's not really the water. I've heard you describe that before, but the reason it's not really the water is because it's more like NESI is my water. Your first and your fourth define the water in which all the functions swim. Because the first and the fourth are the two that you can really use exclusively of each other. You can say, I'm going to use any. If I'm not using any, if I'm using SI, I'm not using any. If I'm keeping track of ideas I've already come up with, then I'm not coming up with new ideas. If I'm coming up with new ideas, then I'm not keeping track of the ones I've already kept track of. It's, for me, in the first and fourth slot, it's exclusive in that fashion. Now, it's exclusive and also cooperative, so that they're always going back and forth like this. It's mostly like this, with a little bit of this. But the point is, it works like that. So everything gets filtered through that thing, namely new ideas and self-identity. Meaning, like, it's very important to me to link my new ideas to who I am, which is what this YouTube channel is. I like to rewatch my videos. I remember who I am, and I have some sense of where I am in my identity build, so to speak. The FE is there as a goal. I'll know I'm succeeding in my identity build when everybody likes me. The TI is there as a means. I can be sure that everybody's going to like me by not being hypocritical and being honest and being logical and fair. And that's the front stack. That's an EHP in a nutshell. The back stack, however, provides us a lot more information about it. So being the fact that I'm a talker and TIFE in there, NI, truth, means precision with language or accuracy with stories or things like that. is very important to me. And when people use language in ways that I don't like, it bothers me a lot. That means and I'm going to perceive that as false or, not true. So truth is an absolute value for me. And then extroverted thinking, the effectiveness part of things, well, because of the way everything plays out, that my absolute values are talking, being liked, the truth, effectiveness or efficiency in non-social systems is not something I care about. It's usually going to run afoul of my shit. And then also my own feelings, my own arbitrary attachments. So Jean Grey asked, do you really care about people liking you? This is the thing. Does that mean I care a lot when one person doesn't like me? No. So I need to know that my narratives are established and I have faith in them as their abilities, the ability of the narratives to win because they're backed by truth. And my absolute value is also my legitimizing function. I'm assuming basically the world legitimizes according to truth, just like I do. Everybody kind of assumes the world does what they do on their fifth slot function. So yeah, it's like person Y is mad at you, Eric. Well, I don't give a fuck. Person Y can suck it. Everybody's mad at you, Eric. Okay, what did I do? The ones that have opposite modalities of your lead and secondary functions, so TE for TI leads, NI for NE secondaries, are more easily brought to consciousness, in my opinion. You're right, Pope Oslet. Sixth slot function is the most conscious of the back slot functions, and fifth slot function is the second most conscious of the back slot functions. Sixth slot function is the most willfully responsive that you can almost directly call upon it. Whereas fifth slot is the most willfully noticeable. Like it'll happen and you'll trust it most easily, but you're not really exactly willing it. So they're both conscious, more conscious than the other two backslide for sure. The other two backside are quite unconscious. Eighth being probably the most unconscious. You have the least sense of how it is that you transform attentionally from something to 8 and back to something again. That makes the least sense to you. 7 is an absolute value. So you're only really experiencing it as such. And especially it's very, it's going to be very much the most you should say most primitive incarnation of it. Eric, what is your reaction to watching yourself get very screamy in a video? I mean, I'm reacting to, I'm not. So what is your reaction to watching yourself get very screamy in a video? My reaction is probably the same as it was that got me screaming in the video. In other words, I'm listening to the words people are saying. So if somebody's saying some stupid ass shit and pisses me off and I get screaming in the video, then I'm still reacting to the stupid ass shit when I'm watching it. I'm not actually reacting to myself being screamy. I'm not thinking about myself being screamy. I'm thinking about the thing that pissed me off in the first place and how it's pissing me off again. Well, that certainly was justified, me being screamy. God, that thing was pissing me off. It still pisses me off. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I also think it's the appropriate response to some of the crap happening. It's like if a person's behavior or a situation or a thing or an injustice or a wrongness, if all of those things, if they happen, we have two choices. We can normalize it by trying to approach it like, hey, remember when you slaughtered my whole family? Can we talk about that? I really don't think that was so great. Right? Well, no, it's appropriate when somebody does a dramatic wrongdoing to express the natural and, reflexive outrage that one experiences in the face of injustice and wrongness. I didn't show my penis to the female viewers. Thank you, Hambone. Just to ones who, I was speaking to one-on-one. And, I guess I just wanted, well, I mean, like, it was only fair because, you show me yours, I'll show you mine, right? It's not like you have to show me, you're going to show me yours, then, you don't get to see mine. That wouldn't be fair. Jeebus, jeez. Please define SI in the fifth slot. So SI in the fifth slot occurs where what's really functioning for the ESTP or the ESFP is that they want to build their own identity with experiences. They want to construct a self that's made out of their experiences. They want it to validate in terms of, they want experience to line up with their fourth slot NI. And they also want to make sure that they are attending to their basic self-care and well-being. That's important, Yeah, that was a great character, Eric. Love the type that goes all, hey, can we talk about it? I didn't feel so comfortable when you slaughtered my family. Right. There are mods aren't spamming. Well, Winston, she may have a lot of words in her. And they may spill out into the chats. That's true. But she's a person of great character and goodwill. And yeah. Oh, Ken Christian Summer. I can tell you my exact time of birth now. It's 1:29 a.m. 1:29 in the a.m. on April 27th, 1971. That and the place of birth is Panorama City. Oh, yeah. Here in Panorama City. For him, relationships are all about being fair and judging fair. Right. Of course. It should be for everybody. Okay. So I would love for you, Ken Christian Summer Pagoo, if now that you know that those specifics, 1:29 in the a.m. in Panorama City, if that helps you to find out the true astrology of me, then that'd be great. 8 to 6, which is more noticeable? 6. Look, 6 is more noticeable to actual individuals. 8 is more noticeable to people looking on for in general. So if you're saying, do I display more TE or SE in my relationship with you personally, it would probably be TE. If I display more, hey, white, whatever, dude. It's like, don't be so attached to your modality, all right? I get it. Under that metric, you're right. But just, be metric fluid like me. Metric fluid, okay? You could call me a magical thinker, or you could just call me metric fluid. Date of birth 4/27/71. That's April 20. I told you fucking 50 times now. 4/04 to April 27th, 1971. Jeez, King Krishna Sarma Pagoo. God, don't you know what 4/27/71 means? No, I don't drive a Taurus, White. I drive a Mini Cooper. Okay? God. I do get along with C.S. Joseph so well. This whole thing has been a big act. Actually, and in fact, Rachel's an actress as well. Mm-hmm. But people don't know, and we're going to reveal it. Today is the big reveal. C.S. Joseph and I are in cahoots as gay lovers with a harem of she-males, and we live in the mountains of Montana. True story. Rachel's just an actress pretending to be my girlfriend. Actually, it's me and C.S. Joseph making butt lob 24/7. Rachel is carrying a baby that's fathered by neither of us, but not to our knowledge. We both think we're the father. There was actually a third guy who fathered it. No, C.S. Joseph and I are faithful to each other. We don't have threesomes with Rachel. She's just our surrogate baby carrier. She's the breeder we're using to carry our gay baby. Little does either CS or I know, neither of us is the father. Okay. It was actually one of the she-males. Well, apparently Rachel is what they're doing. The harem of she-males is there to provide us dramatic, I guess you'd call them, what's that called? It's like a vignette, but it's like a stage, people standing very still and like a like a live action, freaking, what are those things you make in boxes called? Diorama, like a live action diorama. Okay, so the she-males are mostly there to provide striking Calvin Klein like body poses in our live action diorama. One of them, who I believe is named Rubith, one of the she-males, Rubith, is pre-op, and I guess whatever, had sex with Rachel and impregnated her around the same time when both C.S. Joseph and I were squirting turkey basters full of man seed into her. Panorama City is in Los Angeles County, King Krishna Summer Pagoo. I still maintain a very small percentage of belief that all the random TWFP drama is staged and you're all laughing at it behind the scenes. It's not the case. I assure you. It's neither of ours. It's Rubith's, but neither C.S. Joseph nor I know that. What will we name our gay baby? Well, I favor Rainbow Sparkles. Rainbow Sparkles. And of course, it's going to be a hyphenated last name, Joseph Strauss. But of course, he wants it to be Strauss Joseph. But I say, no, Strauss should be the last one. It's later. It's later in the alphabet. Well, look, that's the other thing I want to tell you. Well, C.S., he wants to name our baby Barry Claire. But I say it sounds like Bear Eclair, you know. He says, no, Barry short for barreled. But I point out, if we are going to call him Barry, then we shouldn't make his middle name Claire, because then he's going to sound like Barry Claire. And that's a weird name. Rainbow Sparkles is much better. As far as the sides of the mind, he says 4, I say 1. We're working on a compromise. I think we're going to both agree on 2.5 sides of the mind eventually. Okay? Not Barry like E-R-R, B-A-R-R-Y. Barry Claire. Okay? Yeah, the first spelling of Claire. Barry Claire. Barreled is the full name. Barreled Claire. Well, that's the other thing is I don't want my baby to live in his shadow for more than a week or two at a time. Whereas CS is saying he thinks it's good for a child to live in their shadow for up to a year at a time. I don't know about that. That's kind of extreme. I'm right-handed. The dominant function is the real voice. Oh, the original voice. The 8th is Sean, the dark side. Since CSJ started a relationship with you, his NA is getting better and better. You know, what I discovered is after you've heard like that funny voice he does a bunch of times, it really starts to get kind of almost tolerable. Yes, White, we agree. How old will our baby be? Good question. We plan to have a baby that's born somewhere between a year and a year and a half old already, so we can pass by all the breastfeeding stage. Rag had Alawad. Hello. This is any voice turn me on? Of course it does. In bad, he was going, and I go, oh my God, that's so sexy, CS. Okay. Well, like I said, Rachel is the surrogate, but we've all agreed to have the baby transferred from her womb into my butt before birth. The baby actually emerges from my butt. Styles, which is at best a scripted thing that tends to correlate with certain things, but it's certainly not a way to type people, and it's ridiculous. Okay, cool. You're gonna sit on our baby. Great. But that's it. Good night, sweetheart. It's time to go. I've got other things to do besides just live stream, although it was a lot of F-U-N.
Oh.